The desert stretched endlessly behind them, glowing gold beneath the rising sun. Matthew walked slowly beside Abba Elias, each step a quiet farewell to the land that had broken him, healed him, and remade him. The cracked jar hung from his belt, and the small olive wood cross rested warm against his chest. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The path ahead seemed both familiar and foreign. Familiar because it led back to the world Matthew had known. Foreign because Matthew was no longer the man who had walked into the desert days earlier. When they reached a rise overlooking the road, Elias stopped. "This," he said softly, "is where our paths part." Matthew's breath caught. He wasn't ready. He wanted one more day, one more lesson, one more evening beneath the stars. He wanted the comfort of Elias's wisdom and the refuge of silence. But the monk placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Do not fear," Elias said. "The desert is not leaving you. It walks with you now." Matthew swallowed hard. "I don't know how to leave you." Elias smiled. "You are not leaving me. You are returning to where God needs you." Matthew looked at the horizon, a distant road shimmering beneath the heat. It felt impossible. Heavy. Real. "What if I fail?" Matthew whispered. "You will," Elias said calmly. "But failure is not falling down. It is refusing to rise again." Matthew felt tears pool in his eyes. "And," Elias added gently, "you will never rise alone." Matthew nodded, unable to speak. Elias stepped closer, his eyes warm with fatherly affection. "Matthew, the desert taught you how to breathe, how to forgive, how to trust, how to surrender, how to stand in the storm, and how to choose God above all else." "I know," Matthew whispered. "But I'm afraid I'll forget." Elias shook his head. "You will remember. Because the lessons are not written on paper, they are written on your heart." For a moment, they simply stood together, the desert wind brushing past like a final blessing. Then Elias placed his hands on both of Matthew's shoulders and spoke with quiet authority. "You came to this desert as a man drowning. You leave it as a man reborn. Now go, and live what you have learned." Matthew closed his eyes, letting the words soak into him like water into dry ground. When he opened them again, Elias stepped back. "It is time," the monk said. Matthew felt something inside him shift, reluctance giving way to purpose. He tightened his grip on the cracked jar, touched the cross at his neck, and took his first step toward the waiting road. He only made it a few meters before turning back. Elias was still there, smiling. Matthew raised a hand in gratitude. The monk returned the gesture. Then the path curved, and Elias disappeared behind a dune, but Matthew felt him still, like a presence lingering behind the veil of sight. He continued walking until the desert thinned and the first signs of civilization appeared, a distant vehicle, faint tire tracks, the subtle hum of life. When he reached the road, Matthew stopped. Cars passed occasionally, each one a reminder of the world he was returning to, a world of schedules, noise, and expectations. He inhaled slowly. Long. Deep. Steady. The breath of a man who had learned to breathe again. A jeep approached, its engine humming over the sand. The driver slowed as he neared Matthew. "You okay, friend?" the driver asked, concern in his eyes. Matthew smiled gently. "Yes," he said. "I'm okay." "You lost?" the man asked. Matthew looked back at the vast desert, silent, glowing, alive. "No," he said softly. "I've been found." The man motioned to the passenger seat. "Need a ride?" Matthew hesitated, then nodded. He climbed in, gently resting the cracked jar on his lap. As the jeep pulled away, Matthew watched the desert fade behind him. But he did not feel loss. He felt presence. As though the lessons, the memories, the prayers, and Elias's voice traveled with him. He touched the cross at his chest. "Lord," he prayed silently, "walk with me now. Guide my steps as you guided my breath. Let me carry this peace into the world that broke me." Not with fear, but with faith. The jeep continued toward the horizon. Months later, Matthew stood outside his apartment building, his suitcase at his feet. Everything felt different now, the city noise, the rush of people, the hum of engines. But this time, Matthew did not feel overwhelmed. He breathed steadily, the desert breath steady in his chest. Inside his home, he placed the cracked jar on a shelf where the morning sun touched it. The letter to his father remained inside, a reminder of healing begun. He poured himself a glass of water. He prayed before answering emails. He took time to rest. He forgave quickly. He let silence be part of his day. He called his father. Not all days were perfect. Some were difficult. Some stirred old anxieties. But each time, he returned to the well. To the breath. To the prayers learned in the cave. To the God who had found him in the storm. Each morning, he touched the olive wood cross and whispered, "I choose you again." And in that choice, Matthew lived the way the desert had taught him. With trust, humility, courage, and faith. The way of the desert monk. A way he would never abandon. A way that would carry him forward. For the rest of his life.